All right, so we got something a little different today. I am in our Discord server here in the Livestreams channel. If you want to jump in there, you can. You will be muted by default. And I also have a Microsoft Teams meeting. So if you guys want to call in and ask me questions, just dial the number. Oh God. There we go. Right there with the conference ID, and that will pipe in your audio to the stream here. So the whole idea is literally ask me anything. You can be in chat. I'd prefer if people are in Discord or the Microsoft Teams meeting. You can call in. I can also, you know what, I think I can also just post. Here we go. Let me do this. So I can share this. Let's see, video chat or video call. Oh God. Oh God.
Here to help.
Oh no, it's Tor. Let's see, Tor's in here. Okay, here's the. Yeah, I copied the join information. Microsoft's like, here's a whole embed URL thing. There we go. All right, I think I got this. Hang on. Let me update the video description. It should actually have the Teams meeting link in there in a sec.
Before I start unmuting people, go ahead and finish the disclaimer about all that.
The disclaimer? What disclaimer?
Microphone and.
Oh yeah. Don't. Yeah. If you're coming into Discord, do push to talk. I see we got Bully and Zolan. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Zolan. And Bully, let's see. Bully, do you have a question that I might have an answer to? Let's see here. Go ahead. You were unmuted. You have to unmute yourself. Let's see here. You should be good now. You should be able to hear me. I can hear you, but you have to unmute your microphone.
They might be trying to figure it out.
Yeah, they're probably trying to figure it out. But yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the actual Teams conference call here. That should work. It should be the correct information. Let me just do a test call here and see. We're gonna be doing this regularly, a couple times a week, so where people can ask questions about their printer and products and whatever. Let's see here.
Audio conferencing center.
Let's see if this
Please
works.
enter a conference ID followed by pound.
Okay, so 214-291-979 pound. Let's see.
If you're the meeting organizer, press star now.
And I'm assuming it'll show up here on my team system.
After the tone, please record your name and then press pound.
It's Tim.
Hey, Lightspeed.
Let's see here.
Please wait for the leader to admit you to the meeting.
Okay, so it is
Thank
working.
you for your patience.
So let's see here.
You're now
this
joining
is
the meeting.
Hello. Oh yeah, that works. It's Tim.
Is now joining.
That's funny. It's Tim.
Is now exiting.
Oh, that's funny. You guys might not be able to hear it. So anyways, while we're waiting, if we'll see if we actually get people to come in or not. We'll see. You can dial in, you can jump into Discord, or just post a question in chat.
Discord's probably going to be best.
Ooh, echo.
Oh, is there an echo? Maybe you should mute the stream. So, I've got the things that I'm wrapping up today for the CR6 users is getting the video to swap these little guys out. These are the new ones. This one has the original one in here, so I'm going to be doing a video showing that. I do also have is something that you guys would be interested in seeing.
No, echo's gone.
Oh, well, that was weird. I have the direct drive conversion upgrade for the CR10 V2, which will essentially then make it the CR10 V3. Is that something you guys would want to see a stream on? Oh, the echoes when I was testing the Teams bridge. Yeah. Well, because I was on my cell phone here. But yeah, I'm checking to see. There is also a Livestream's Discord channel for text. Let's see here. So there was, if you guys caught the stream the other night, it was myself and Joe from Project R3D, and he was going on about that R3 printing investor thing, which looks really sketchy, real sketchy. Like, how do you guys, how do you have like over $1 million in funding and still have not a single video or image of your printer actually working? Like, and I did message that one girl that I knew that was listed on their team. She hasn't gotten back to me, so I doubt she will. I don't know if you guys caught that or not. You guys, I'm kind of talking to you guys in the Discord server here because no one else is in.
I caught part of it, but it was I pretty much passed out in the middle of it. But yeah, it did seem kind of sketchy.
Yeah. Oh, it kind of is being nice. It seems like what's the word? I think it's like called an exit strategy or something like that, or I don't know what the word is, but basically like it seems like there's really no intention for them to actually make a product. It's just let's just get some funding and get some money and then kind of blow it.
All right.
Like that's what it seems like. Could be wrong, but I'm just going based off of what I see. Like, I know it's a lot of work to try to launch a printer, but come on, it's been 3 years and you guys got millions, over $1 million. Oh, here we go. Yeah, post some stuff in chat. Lightspeed, your microphone is going all sorts of weird. Can't I also embed the Discord channel so it shows who's talking on my screen here? This is literally the first time.
Should be
like a widget,
OBS?
like a Discord web widget. Oh, hey, we got someone waiting here in the lobby. Let's see who this is.
I know Discord has their own.
All right, hang
overlay.
on. Let me. Someone actually called in. Let's see. So Discord, be quiet for now. All right, let's see. I clicked the little checkbox. Let's see. It should be adding someone in.
Yes.
Oh.
Glenn Helwig.
Hey, Glenn, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Now joining.
Not bad, sir. I've got the Ender 3, and I've got a Easy ABL I bought over a year ago, and then I got sick and never got to get any real tech support on it, and I sent some information in because I just bought your board and put it in.
The Easy board?
Yeah, the Easy Light board.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having problems getting the bed leveled and everything, and one of your techs retook my file and straightened it out a little bit, the config file.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me a couple of tricks to do, and they didn't work, so he suggested I buy some new springs because my old springs were pretty bad.
You're talking about for the bed?
Yeah, for the bed, and I tried getting that fairly level,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep having problems just across the front. I can't seem to get a lay down, and I was thinking my Z offset, I don't know how to even start calculating where that thing should be.
So is it like closer toward, is it like, so a lot of times what we'll see is you'll get an uneven result, meaning it's close. It can be closer on the left side or the right side, or it can even be closer on the front towards the back. Usually there's almost like a slant to the mesh. Is that kind of what you're getting?
It seems fairly thick in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and going across the front, there is nothing until it just about gets to the right side.
Okay, so
And then it'll start.
So what? So do you verify that you have your actual offsets for the sensor correctly in the firmware for whatever mount you're using?
again, you're talking to a real rookie here.
It's all good. So, are you using the one of the OEM? Are you using like the OEM style bracket then for your printer?
Yes,
Okay.
that I got from you guys.
Yeah. That'll be correct then. So in the firmware, then you uncommented the OEM mount, or use the. You said you have our easy board, so you could have used the website.
Right, I did, and then I took the file from your site, the config file.
Yeah.
And I sent it back to, memory may fade me, but I think the guy's name was McMac or Mac.
Mac. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, he asked me to send it, and I sent him pictures and everything, and he said thank you, and he says, I'm going to straighten out some things in your file and change some.
Okay.
And he did and sent it back, and it started working fairly nice, but I've been playing with trying to get it leveled before I try to do any prints.
Do you have have you sent in any pictures that I could pull up so I could actually take a look at what your of your first
Right.
layer?
I sent him the first time to Mac.
Okay.
And
let me see here. Could you mute the stream in the background there? Because I am getting some feedback. Yeah, just mute the stream. So because I'm hearing it coming back through. Let me see here. I'm gonna try to pull up your. Hang on, my system is big. Oh, here we go. Orders. I'm just pulling up your account information here. So,
okay, let me see if I can. I've got a sheet here on the.
Yeah, if you got the ticket number, I can pull it up because I can also show people too. Not any of your personal information, obviously, but the
okay.
The
I got the order number, which is 311476.
31147. Okay, let me see. That should pull something up. Yep, I got you, Glenn, here. Let me see. So I see picture upload here. Let me look at what pictures you sent here. You sent a bunch of them.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm just looking at. So do you have? I see these are just of it installed. Do you have anything of what your first layer looked like?
No.
Okay, because here's what I could tell you to check. So if it's from what it sounds like, it's thinner in the front and it's thicker in the rear, correct?
Right, it's non-existent in the front.
Yeah, so that would be what we call is like a slanting thing. And have you run the M48 test on your sensor yet?
I've ran it before, but I haven't run it since I've just put the springs in and stuff.
Okay, so the first thing I would recommend doing is run the M48 test. You can do it from the printer's LCD screen.
Right.
Usually, so, and if that gives you a value under 0.01, then that means the sensor's calibrated and you shouldn't touch anything on that side of things. Now, the thinner in the front could be a number of different things. And let me pull your config back up because I saw Max sent that. I accidentally closed it because I thought I wasn't going to need to reference it, but hang on, let me pull that back up here. Because what you could do, are you using anything like binder clips or anything on the bed?
I have one in the front because the others are all shot off.
Okay, so what I would recommend doing, and I'm looking at your config file here, let me see. So in the configuration file, and you can also set this through the Easy Firmware site, and I'm going to just do a screen share here so I can show not only you on the stream, but the other people that are watching this. So in our firmware, there's an option called the Easy ABL Probe Edge in here. And what this does is it tells the printer how far in from the edge of the bed it's going to take the readings from. And when you're using something like binder clips, they can actually influence the reading. So you can see here we have a recommendation. You set that to 50. You're currently at 35. So I would try setting that to 50. You just recompile the firmware and re-upload it. And then make sure whenever someone's having weird issues where it's just like everything is set up correctly physically, you don't have any issues physically on the printer, meaning like all your rollers are good, your frame is square, your gantry's level, your bed's not, it's really, really important to check the rollers on the bed too, to make sure those are all touching the extrusion. And when you move the bed, all the wheels should roll at the same time. And right, if they,
I took those, I don't know what you want to call it, spacers that I bought from you guys. I took those out because I couldn't level the bed.
Yeah, and
in any way, shape, or form.
Now, if your bed's that far out of level, whereas when you put the solid mounts on, that you can, see it, and it's a big difference. I've actually had people, they take the plate off and they flatten the plate out, because usually what happens then is it's not actually the bed that's not flat. It could be that your carriage itself is bent. So
Okay.
you can actually take the carriage off. You can use the springs if you want. It really doesn't matter, as long as those springs are holding their position and not, moving on you. Because depending on how tight or how loose they are, the actual like wheels that they use to adjust can, from the vibration of the printer, can unscrew themselves, and then it starts messing things up. But if you put the spacers on the bed and it's not flat, or relatively level, and by relatively I mean like, not more than a millimeter out on either corner to corner, side to side, that kind of thing. It's usually
Spacers, we're measuring about 3 millimeters difference on some of them.
there shouldn't be that much, because the spacers themselves have an aluminum insert, and those inserts are within point 0.02 is what the tolerances are on from the manufacturer, and they're actually longer than the printed part themselves. So
I just ran your M48, and I got 0.002979.
okay, so don't mess with anything on the sensor calibration. Just double check that the nuts that are holding the sensor and your bracket, that all that is tightened up and nothing's loose. Because if that's loose, it can then influence the reading too. And then for the actual wiring, did you leave the little little extra kind of like droop of wire by the hot end when you attached it?
Yes.
Okay, because the one thing I have seen happen, if people don't do that, not only can it break the cable just from fatigue, but it can actually pull up on the sensor. So depending on the location of the head, it can actually skew the reading because it's actually pulling up on the carriage. And did you check the eccentric nut on the bottom of the printer carriage?
No, I have not.
So on the bottom of the printer's, like the actual head carriage, there's two wheels on top and there's one on the bottom. There's an eccentric nut on the bottom of that carriage, and you can adjust that to move the wheel closer or further from the extrusion. If it's too far, then the carriage can have some play, which can also influence the reading. Basically, anything mechanically that's not adjusted correctly and has looseness to it can impact not only just our sensor, but any sensor in general. And even a printer without a sensor, you can get all these weird artifacts on your prints and things just aren't working correctly. So the first thing I do if I'm having weirdness where it's too close, now yours is close on the front and higher in the back, so that tells me that it's probably something with the bed. And the fact that, like, if you're you said you had the solid mounts, those all should be within 0.2 millimeters of them. If they're not, send us a picture of that with the calipers and we'll replace those, because I'd also want to know where that happened, because those spacers should be what the bed is sitting on, not the actual printed part. And those have pretty good tolerances.
I went ahead and bought those big heavy yellow springs and pulled those out and put the...
Yeah, and the springs are fine. So did you check your gantry too to make sure the gantry itself is leveled?
I did at one time, but I haven't... I'm moving slow because I've had neck surgery, so...
Okay, because the reason I asked that is because if the gantry's out of level and you're leveling the bed, obviously, to the nozzle, it can make it look like your bed is tilted. Because if you bring the gantry down, and let's say, the right side's, a couple millimeters higher than the left, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're leveling the bed, it makes the bed look like it's tilted. And the sensor's only going to compensate for the bed itself being warped or unlevel. When you get into the gantry, that's part of the printer's frame, it can detect that there's something off, but the correction algorithm doesn't work to correct for a gantry skew. And there's really no way for it to know what that skew is. So the general consensus is that the gantry needs to be as level as possible with the printer frame. The bed could be at the bed could be at a slant, and the sensor will account for that, but it's assuming that everything else is correct, because most of the time it's not your printer frame, it's the bed that you're compensating for. It's a bed leveling sensor. It won't compensate for a gantry being out. But usually when I've seen where it's too close in the front and higher in the rear, or vice versa, it's usually either the wheels under the bed are shifting. They're not tight enough, meaning as it comes to the front, the bed could dip down a little bit.
Right.
Which is going to screw up the result. And it's not going to be that same amount of dip every single time. And this is a really weird one. This took me a while to figure out when I had it on one of my machines. I had it on my CR10. If the belt is over tightened, what'll happen is as it gets towards the front, the belt will pull down on the carriage. So make sure your belt is not over tightened. What I usually do is I'll loosen up my belt until it skips a tooth if I'm moving it. And then tighten it up just a little bit. You just want it so that the belt has enough tension to stay on the gear that's driving it, that's attached to the motor, without it slipping. It should be slightly taut. It shouldn't be super tight. I would be willing to bet, like if I had that machine here in person, it's either probably going to be the Y belt, or even it's more like the Y because of the slant you're seeing, the difference from the front to the rear. My guess would be it's either the belt or the wheels on that particular setup. Your sensor's working correctly. If your sensor wasn't working correctly, that M48 test would have a very high number. But because you're getting 2 zeros in that number, you said 0.002. Don't mess with the sensor. The sensor's set up correctly and communicating with the board correctly. It's reading correctly. So the M48 test is really nice because if there's an issue with the sensor, whether it's calibration or a defective sensor, that number will be all over the place and it'll be high and low and high and low. But if you're always reading under 0.01, then you can rule the actual sensor itself out of the equation. It's going to be something else on the machine.
Okay, you've given me a lot of good information to shoot out. I told Mac I would let him know when I got things straightened out.
No, it's all good.
Another, so
yeah,
but
no,
I appreciate it. You guys have been more than helpful.
No, I appreciate it, Glenn. Just let us know if you need anything else, and you know how to get in touch with us too. So I appreciate you popping on. This is fun.
Thank you.
No problem. Take it easy. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we actually have another person here in the lobby.
+1 98935486626.
Is now
What is
exiting.
that? Oh, I don't know what that was. It just read out. That wasn't his phone number. That was a random number. All right, so we got one more person here. Let's see. Let's admit them. Oh, let's see. Can you hear me? Who am I talking to?
Is now joining.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I think we're good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Who am I talking to?
David, Penrod.
Hey, David, how's it going?
Good.
So what can I help you with?
Okay, I have the Ender 3.
Mm-hmm.
I have the light board from you folks.
Yeah, the easy board.
Yes. I have the easy ABL. Okay. Here's my problem. I did an Ender Extender 400 XL.
Okay. I'm vaguely familiar with those. Those are the ones that increase the bed size. And sometimes the Z, if I'm correct?
Correct. I'm 400 by 400 by 500. I
Okay.
went into the firmware. That's the only thing that I changed. Okay. Now, when I run my board, I do the AZ, the bed level.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is it goes over to the start point on the front. It does the first one, the second one, the third one across the front row, moves to the middle,
Mm-hmm.
does the far right, then it does the middle, then it goes to the far left, number 6 position, and stops.
Does it give
Yeah,
you
it's-
anything on the screen, like an error message or anything?
The only thing I have on the screen in an error message is it says SDINDT error.
Okay, yeah, that's just. I'm assuming you don't have an SD card inserted when you turned it on. That's just a normal thing, especially with the newer firmware. So you're sounds like you're running the latest firmware. I'm just pulling up the configuration files. Typically, if it just stops, it should say like a probing error. Have you tried running it with it connected to a computer, like with the USB cable connected, so you can actually see what it's outputting on the the terminal, like the messages where you can send like G-code commands, that kind of thing?
Well, I'm running S3D.
Okay, so they do have a terminal program. So if you plug your printer board into the computer, you can actually connect to the COM port and see exactly in more detail what the printer is doing. So if I pull up, you'll be able to see this on the stream here. So if I have Simplify 3D open and I hold down Control and press P, and I believe it's Command P on Mac, you can actually select the port your printer's on, and then the baud rate. So for the Easy Board and all the other Creality boards, the baud rate's going to be 115/200. So what I would do in that situation is connect to this and do a auto home, which would be you could either just go to the jog controls and hit home all, which is going to send a G28 to the printer, which will home X, Y, and Z. And then if you go to the communication tab on Simplify 3D and type a capital G29 and then hit send, that will send the command to take the bed leveling result. Now, if for some reason the variance between one probe point to the next is too high, it will abort the probing. So what it's doing is it's detecting that's there because that value is so high. That is a configuration setting, and I can tell you what I have that set to in our firmware. Basically, if the variance is too much from one point to the next, it's going to assume that, hey, this is a little too high. There might be something wrong with the printer, so let's just abort the probing. I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm looking here. So the Z probe. So this is in our firmware. There's that configuration backend file. There's a value called Z probe low point, and I'm sharing this on the screen so people can see who are watching. And there's going to be about a 30-second delay from the stream to when you see it, just because that's YouTube. So in that file, we have that set at 2 millimeters. So basically, if there's a 2 millimeter variance or more between the probing points, it's going to abort the probe because it thinks something's wrong. And what you can do to correct that is either you could physically adjust the bed so it's more level to bring it into that variance, the 2 millimeter. You know what I'm talking about? So you could either level the bed out a little more, so it's within that 2 millimeter variance low point, or modify the firmware so that low point is higher. Does that make sense?
Yes. Here's something that I might be doing wrong. Okay. My Z, or not my Z axis, but my X axis, I have a Z. I have a single Z.
Okay.
Now, I do have a dual Z here, but I don't have the screw or the rod. It is coming
because it's longer because you extended it.
Right. And
Yeah.
so what's happening is, I think, from what you just explained to me about the bed being level, I can't level my bed because I am solid.
Okay.
Okay.
So you could try in that I don't normally recommend people shim it, but because of you have this aftermarket kit on there, and I know like they even say their beds aren't that flat. You could try shimming it out. So the firmware for the Easy Board, now if you're using our website, you can't adjust this setting through the website compiler. But you can download the firmware and compile it with VS Code, which we do have a video on the channel showing how to set up VS Code. Once it's set up, it's pretty easy. It's just a little more involved, but you can then go in and change that option too. But what I was bringing up with the control panel is that's going to give you more of a verbose message output versus what the LCD is. So when it's taking those readings, it'll be actually sending out messages on each point, but it doesn't display it on the LCD. You only see that on what's called the serial console, which is what the communication tab is on Simplify 3D. So you can then get more information to see what it's doing, and then when it stops, there's going to be some sort of output at that point when that happens. So if it just stops the probing and like it doesn't restart, like if it's just stopping and aborting the probing, there's more than likely going to be something being put out in the serial window that is going to tell you what's going. And my guess, based on information I have, is that it's probably going too low and the printer's firmware thinks that there's something wrong because that distance is too high. And like I said, it's set to only 2 millimeters, and I could increase that. But, you know, on machines where there is, like, let's say the reason for that feature is that, let's say, you know, you're probing and all of a sudden, like, it's halfway through and something happens, like the power cuts out for the probe or it fails or something. Instead of it just keeping trying to drive into the bed, it just aborts it. It's like a fail safe almost, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
I did get an error message when I tried to level the bit again that said out of parameters.
It said what?
Okay. It said out of, you know, like it went out of the parameter, you know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that error message in a little bit, but I think that sounds like what's happening. I can pull up if I actually look in the language files for the firmware. Let me see here. Probe out. Is it probe out of bounds? Is that the error?
Yeah, I think that's what it said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's my thing. I'm waiting on the longer rod. It's not in my installed yet.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that my Z axis is hanging down on the right side, and then when it goes to the probe, and when it gets to the other side where the Z is up, so I'm not really got my Z.
Yeah, so that whole and it's especially on the bigger one, it's going to be more exacerbated because of that longer span. I would highly recommend doing a dual Z with that long of a span on that machine. And that comes back to like the previous guy, Glenn, that we were talking to. That goes back to having your gantry level too. So if it's sagging,
yeah, and I think that is my problem listening to what you had.
Yeah, that's what I would check. So if I had that machine, I'd be checking. And it takes a lot of fiddling, but you can get, even with that long of a span, you can get it pretty close. But you're going to be adjusting the wheels to make sure that especially on the right side, it has enough tension with the eccentric nut and those wheels are aligned correctly, so it actually holds it in position instead of it sagging down. You know, on the stock Ender 3, that's only going like 240 millimeters of span, essentially, a little bit longer than that. But then you're going up to the 400 XL, that's, you know, almost doubling it. You know, and it's more weight too.
Correct. And so, like I say, what I'm going to do is I'll wait until that rod gets here, get my Z set up, and then I'll go from there. And we'll see if that takes care of my problem.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like I said, you can, if you spend enough time adjusting it, you can probably get it within you know, the correct amount of level. Ideally, you want to have no more than a millimeter or two distance difference from on the left and right side from the bottom of that the X gantry bar that goes, you know, horizontally across that the carriage rides on to the printer's frame.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to mention though is my big plate that I did get, my aluminum plate. I got lucky, and it is almost perfectly flat, no warping.
That's good. Yeah, so the less variations you have just in general are the better. Yeah, I would start with the X gantry there and
Yeah.
just see where that's at. There's you know, you can use calipers, you can use a ruler. I've got somewhere around here, I've got like a wooden ruler I use for checking that real quick. I just put it up next to there and adjust it. But obviously if you only have one Z rod like the Ender 3 has, you're going to have to be doing manual adjustments, and you can that X gantry has the 2 screws on the one side and 2 screws on the other, so you can loosen that up and then get it where you want and tighten everything down. But it's always going to sag a little bit. So it's basically until you get the second Z screw, you just have to play with it and try to get as close as you can. And then to find out actually what's going on, I would connect it to the computer and then watch the serial communication, because it will tell you the actual error message, what is happening. And then once you see that, then you can go from there, because if it's going out of bounds, you can adjust in the firmware. But if that gantry's sagging too, even if you get it to complete a probe, the mesh might not be good if that gantry is not level with the frame of the printer.
Okay, well, I would really appreciate the info, and just listening to some other things that you told me, I think I could probably repair my problem.
Yeah, you should be good. It's they're the printers themselves, they really aren't that complicated. The problem is that it's a lot of little stuff that can compound to a larger issue. You know, so you got to take it step by step and go over all the little things, and once you get them all, you know, lined up and organized, you know, it all just starts coming together and things start working. But if you've got a bunch of little issues, you know, with your gantry sagging, if, you know, you got wheels that are loose, especially on the bed, or belts are over tightened, it's like all these little things, they compound and compound until things just stop working.
Right.
So,
the other thing is I'm waiting on the mailman to get here so that I can put my Easy Flex plate on here. It's supposed to be here anytime, so then I can go ahead with my adjustments there also.
So on that 400, are they having you use the original Ender carriage, or do they have a larger carriage that you replace it with?
No, it's the same one. It just bolts to, you use the hot plate, you know, your hotbed.
Oh, yeah, and they just have the screw holes in the center of the bed.
Yeah, and it just screws onto there. You just move the bolts out. It already
Gotcha.
has the holes. And then the big plate's already drilled. You just stick it on there. It's actually quite simple
Yeah.
for an upgrade.
Yeah, I thought about getting one, but I can't. I don't really have the need for it. We have bigger machines here, but I'm just curious about the. I was asking about that because I'm curious to see, like, if that carriage can actually support all that extra weight of the larger bed. I think it would be fine as long as everything's adjusted.
Yeah, it runs pretty decent as far as that goes. And what I also, just for my own experience with, I got that thermal stuff to put between the two plates so that I get a good heat transfer
Mm-hmm.
from the smaller to the bigger plate, and it works good.
That's good. Well, I've got. I hope you can get that all sorted out. I got Chris coming in here, and just let us know. Let us know if you need anything else. We're easy to contact. You can just do the contact us.th3studio.com and send a ticket in.
I appreciate it, Tim. Thank you.
No
very
problem.
much.
Take it easy. Have a good day.
You too. Have a
All
good
right.
day.
All right. Let's see here. Can I unmute?
+12082698204.
What is this text to speech thing doing?
Is now exiting.
Okay. Let's see. Chris, can you unmute yourself? Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you. Why is this not letting me unmute you? Oh, wait. Oh, I think you have to unmute yourself. Try it one more time. Oh. Yeah, I don't think so. You're unmuted, Chris. I got Chris here in the Teams here, but it's I'm not getting any audio from Chris. Let me see here. If you click the little 3 dots at the top of the screen, you hit device settings, you should be able to hit that there. Yeah, I'm not hearing it. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm just gonna put you on mute. Teams has a built-in thing. Let's. I think Joshua is the next person. Let me see here, because I can always bring you back. Joshua, are you there? Joshua?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, there you go. I hear you.
Cool.
So
I
how are
have a
you doing
question
today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
So I have a Ender 3. I got the Easy Light board. I've got the latest ABL sensor, all that good stuff. My question is when I put the firmware on there from your website, when I turn the Ender 3 on, I get a long tone. Is that normal, or am I doing something wrong?
No, that's normal. So basically how the I/O pins initialize, they go high for a little bit until the firmware takes over, and then it pulls it low. So how those beepers work, it's just receiving a pulse of voltage. So what you're hearing is the CPU getting power, the firmware then boots up, and then it shuts it off. So all my machines here do it. Some are quieter than others. I found it depends on the screen. Some of the older ones aren't as loud as the newer ones I've noticed, but it's really comes down to that physical little beeper, and I'm sure they source that from multiple different places. But short answer, no, it's completely normal. I believe that's on our FAQ too for that board.
Okay, I'm sorry. I probably didn't see that.
Oh no, it's all good. It might.
I have the CR10S S4, and I don't hear it on that one, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, it's completely normal. So that's just that's just the pin initializing, and then when the firmware takes over, it pulls it down low so it doesn't make any noise.
Okay, and then do you have any tips for printing in TPU on like an Ender 3 or something like that?
So TPU in general, even direct drive helps with that. You have to print slow. Like I have, so for on Ender 3, I've had good success, not with the stock extruder. The first thing is you don't want to use a stock extruder. There's too much play in there. Something like the aluminum one we carry with a tighter path. Now, some of the newer ones do have the tighter path, but you want no distance or as little distance as possible between where it's actually feeding it and where it's pushing it in to get to the hot end. I personally run like the tough extruders we have with our tough tube, and then run it like 20 to 30 millimeters a second is usually what I do. I'm like not looking at the camera here because I'm trying to close this blind here. That is, the sun is glaring in my face right now. But yeah, just print slow, and I would definitely invest in a better extruder. Like we have ones, the Bontecs are good for that too. You basically want something that's going to keep the feeding tight. And then switching out the tubing too. Your standard PTFE tubing can range anywhere from 2 millimeters internal diameter up to 2.2 depending on the manufacturer. Whereas our tough tubing is 1.9. So that's less play in that tube for it to bunch up on itself. That's what you want to do, is you want to reduce the opportunities it has to bunch up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and my biggest issue I've had is right there at the extruder motor, it popping out of the gear.
Yeah.
Does the retraction.
Yeah, so, and you also want to limit retractions too. So for TPU, I'll usually stick to 20 to 30 millimeters a second. Slower is always better. So if you're having issues, go slower. Especially with really soft ones like Ninja Flex. Those are going to want to push out more than more rigid ones. Like regular TPU is actually fairly rigid. I print with TPU for like a lot of drone parts. And I've tried Ninja Flex, and I usually do more of like, I believe it would be more classified as like semi-flex. So it's still flexible. You can bend it. It doesn't break. It doesn't get the stress fractures, but it's easier to feed too. And that's typically just more run-of-the-mill TPU type filament versus like the Ninja Flex. The Ninja Flex stuff is very soft. In general, one of the things that people prefer direct drive over Bowden is because it's easier to do flexible on a direct drive setup. There's less distance between where it's being fed from and the nozzle. So the less distance you have, the less chance it essentially has to bunch up, if that makes sense.
It does.
So, but yeah, I would definitely, if you have it, if you're still running the stock extruder, our tough extruder does great with it. If you're looking for something else, something a little fancier, there's the Bontex. The Hemera does great with Flex too. There's a bunch of different options on the market. You basically want something that's going to limit the chances where filament can escape from where it's being driven.
Okay, cool deal.
All right, Joshua, thanks for stopping by.
All right, thanks, Tim.
All right, let's see if Chris has got his microphone working now.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now, Chris. What's up?
Hey there. Nice to meet you, Tim.
Same here.
I saw your video breakdown on that machine behind you, the CR6 SE.
Yeah.
I kickstarted one of those.
Have you gotten it? Have you gotten it?
Oh yeah, I got
Okay.
it. I got it on Friday. I've been printing with it since then, nonstop.
And there we go. Since you got video, I went ahead and shared your video too. So.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so bad.
It's just the camera.
Yeah, my question is that default software that comes with the Creality, it seems to be really hobbled. Like I cannot change any of the values in the print.
Are you talking about like on the firmware level?
No, I'm talking like just going in and changing things like speed values.
In the slicer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I actually don't use their slicer at all. We use Simplify 3D here a lot. Everybody's got an opinion on it.
I've got it.
Yeah, I use that. This is where you're going to do all your adjustments. As far as I know, Creality's firmware, or not firmware, but their software they use is basically Cura with a rebrand and preset up profiles. Personally, I don't ever use, unless it's like a resin printer where it's like its own proprietary type electronics where it needs that manufacturer software. I usually don't use the manufacturer supplied software. I always use, for slicing for FDM, I always use Simplify 3D. I would recommend just starting in general, if you have a Bowden system, especially if it's a Creality, start out with a profile for like an Ender 3 would be a good starting point for the CR6, and then just modify your build area for that printer, and then go from there.
Where would I do that? Where do you change the build area? I've already selected.
You have Simplify 3D, you said, right?
I do.
Okay, so I can take, so everybody's got their own way of organizing. So I have, you should be able to see this because you're going to see in my camera preview on Teams, you're going to see exactly what's going out to the stream here. So you should be able to see Simplify 3D here. I don't know how clear it is, but
it's muddy as dirt. But
yeah, sounds accurate. So you have your processes on the left, okay? You just double click on your profile, and let's say, so like let me make one for my CR6 SE. So I don't have one for the CR6 SE, but I have one for the Ender 3. So I'll usually just go ahead and I'll do a Control C and a Control V, which will create a duplicate of it. So I'm just going to rename this process to CR-6 SE and hit OK. Now, you can see here, now it goes down to the Ender 3 build volume. Now, obviously, I believe the CR6 SE is a little bit larger than the Ender 3, if I recall correctly. Isn't it like
235, 250?
Okay, so my Ender 3 profile is actually set up for 230 by 230. Now, if you notice here, I don't actually have a profile for all my printers. I just have them in each process. But some people like to do profiles. So what you can do is you can hit Save As New. Like if I wanted to share this with you, I could save it as a new profile. And so now I have this. To change the build area in Simplify 3D, this is usually what some people see. This is what it's default. You have to click Show Advanced. And then go to G-Code. And then you have your build volume here. So since the CR6 SE, you said they're saying it's 235 by 235 by 250. So I just changed my X-axis and my Y-axis build volume here. And then since I have a profile for it, I can hit Update Profile. And now I have this. So if I click this, you'll see it got slightly larger here.
Cool.
So, and that's all you need to do. Now, if you want to, let's say I wanted to share this profile with you, because I already have it in a profile, I can then export this. But let's say, you know, I want to send someone my Ender 3 profile. Well, I can't export this because this just says default modified. What I would have to do then is I'd have to hit save as new. I'm just going to call this Tim's Ender 3 and hit OK. So now I could actually go to File, Export Profile, and you'll see here Tim's Ender 3. So then I can save this file then. So, and you can do that for any of the FFF profiles. Now you can create a profile or a new process for whatever printer and then just never save it as a profile or update. But if you ever want to export it or share with someone, you have to create, you have to save a profile in order to be able to export it. Now, you could also, like, I could just save this entire factory file and send this to somebody, and not only will the processes come with it, but all of the individual settings per process also comes in that factory file. So when you send a factory file with S3D, it not only has your profiles, but it also has the printers. Now, if I were to send you my factory file, you would not see like the profile name CR6SE, it would just say default modified. But you could then go in and hit save as new and call it whatever you want. And it would then take those settings from all these tabs here and put them into a profile, which you then could then export it.
Awesome.
So as far as I understand, the actual FFF profiles and where you have that different name for each profile, that's stored on your machine. Okay, but those settings are also exported in the factory file, but the profiles themselves will not actually be exported with the factory file. So you can send a factory file to somebody and it's got all the settings, but it's not going to save as a profile. They would then have to then save it as a new profile on their specific computer.
Okay, cool.
So it's not as straightforward, but that's my understanding of that's how I've done it throughout the years, because that's what all I've used is Simplify 3D.
Cool.
So,
cool. Hey, another quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I sprung for the PEI plate
for the CR6. Yeah. I did not. I got ours just based on Amazon, so we didn't have the option to do that.
It comes with this magnetic mat.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, does this go directly on the build plate? And if you do that, do you invalidate the use of the glass plate? Because what I was hoping I'd have are two build surfaces.
Yes, so you're not. So we already have ones that are being cut for the CR6 SE for our Easy Flex. I forgot to turn this camera on before the stream. Oh, there it is. Okay, so what we're going to recommend people do when they install like our Easy Flex on this machine is take the glass plate off, okay? So lift it off, and then unscrew these little brackets on the front here with these two screws here on both sides, and do the same for these little clips on the back, and then you just put the magnet on top of here. So then you would only use a flex plate. You could leave these on, but they're going to honestly kind of get in the way. If you want a cleaner install, you're only going to ever use the flex plate. I would just end up unscrewing these and just pretending like this doesn't exist.
Gotcha.
So
unfortunate. I was hoping that I would be able to, hot swap.
You can't because the thing is, if you just put you could leave this on here and these clips in the back, but once you put the magnet on, it's going to be too thick for them to grab onto the plate again. So it's kind of going to be an either or. There's always workarounds for everything, but the reality.
I was also wondering if the heat would actually go through that magnet to the glass and properly heat the glass.
Yeah, it would. But so in our experience, and I'm assuming their magnets are going to be similar to like the ones we sell. There's actually almost like a urethane coating on the top of those, and we've actually had when we were doing testing to find out what will damage them, not the back of this glass, because it's so smooth. The heat combined with that coating on the magnet actually can make the magnet bond to this. So when you take this off, it takes part of the magnet with it. So I would not recommend putting a glass sheet on top of any flex plate system as a magnet. just because I have seen it. I've had it happen myself with different sheets like this, or even just regular glass sheets, putting them on top of the magnet. Then you pull it off, and sometimes it'll take part of the magnet with it, which then ruins the magnet. Yeah, there's really
more information that came packed with the printer. There's nothing. They just give you this stuff, and it's like, here you go.
Yeah,
enjoy.
Yeah, have fun. I mean, that's basically what it is with all these. But yeah, I mean, personally, I personally don't like these. I hate these type of surfaces. They're a pain, and once you go to using flex plates, it's really hard to go back. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is nice that they include this. This is a nice get you started surface. That's how I look at it.
Worked perfectly. I've never had push button builds like this.
Yeah, there's someone in the live chat on YouTube saying I put a glass plate over top of my Ender 3 Pro magnet, and it's pretty much fused at this point.
Yikes.
Yeah. So so like we actually do test this kind of stuff. Like when we have our flex plate system, we test like, okay, what kind of stuff are users going to possibly do this? Are they going to put plates on it? Or are they going to, what potential failure points and conditions are going to happen? And putting glass plate on top of a magnet, it can cause it to fuse. So especially once you get the heat in there, it just likes to stick to it, and it could even just be, I don't know if it's actually bonding to it or if it's just that sheer suction of it sitting perfectly flat on there, and then you pull it off and it rips the magnet. So I do not recommend anybody put glass on top of any magnetic bed flex plate or any magnetic flex plate system. Now what you could do is you could put, if you want to use the glass, you could put this on top of the flex plate. So it's glass, flex plate, magnet. But then you have to attach this. I would say just say goodbye to this thing and go with the flex plate. Just ditch the glass. I don't have glass on any machines that I use regularly. We all have the flex plates on everything. So like my office, all these machines have flex plates on them.
Are there any recommended settings that you've discovered using your printer?
I haven't actually done much printing with this one. I've been just getting into the guts of it and figuring out what we can do to fix some of these problems. These little guys, being part of it, the whole power switch issue. And then the other one, which is probably going to require Creality putting out a new board, is I've been seeing people where they've had the boards actually go up. The USB arcing, and then like the voltage regulator, for some reason they're stepping down the motor power from 24 volts to 12. I honestly have no idea why they would do that. These stepper motors can run fine on 24 volts. It's weird. So, but yeah, I appreciate you stopping in. It was fun. Have fun and keep an eye on that CR6. Make sure you don't leave it unattended. I would highly recommend keeping an eye on it. I'm not going to trust this thing to do that and not screw up.
Thank you.
No problem. Take it easy, Chris. Have a good one.
Yep.
All right. So, wow, that went by very fast. I was actually only planning on doing this for an hour. So I've got one guy here. I got Marvin here waiting in the lobby, so I'm going to bring him in. And then this will be the last call for the day. Let's see here. Marvin, are you coming in? Marvin?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm ready.
Oh, I can hear you, but do you hear me? Oh. Marvin? Oh wait, he's gone. Oh, hang on, he's back. Let's see. All right, can you hear me now?
I can.
I feel like what is that, the Verizon guy? Those old commercials. Can you hear me now? Good. So what question can I answer for you, or attempt to answer?
I just installed my Easy board, and I'm having issues with the Z being triggered.
On the what are you using for using a switch, an Easy ABL, BL Touch?
Sorry, Easy ABL Pro.
So I'm assuming if you're seeing triggered, you're using the M119 command, correct?
That's correct, and I've even gone so far as to unplug the Z Z switch in stop plug from the board, and it still shows it when I run the M119.
It still shows triggered?
Yes.
Even with nothing connected to it?
Right.
Have you updated the firmware on the board?
I did. I did. Initially, I had some trouble getting the firmware in, and it ended up being I needed to swap out I needed to use a different SD card.
Yeah.
And
the LPCs can be very picky when it comes to cards. It's been a constant nag with these. Like, they're very picky when it comes to SD cards and the firmware files. But if it's always showing triggered, so if you hook the end stop up to it and press the end stop, does it show open then?
That I have not tried plugging in the original end stop.
So try plugging the original end stop in, because if it's showing, here's the thing, if nothing's connected and it's showing triggered, it sounds like the firmware that's on there doesn't have the Easy ABL settings defined on it, because the Creality end stops, their logic is inverse from our Easy ABL circuitry. So meaning if the firmware on the board thinks that it doesn't have an ABL system on it, specifically the Easy ABL, it's going to default to the Creality Z end stop logic, which if nothing's connected to that board, it's going to show triggered all the time.
Okay. I use the Easy for the configurator, online configurator. I'll try it again.
It's possible that the firmware didn't get pulled in, or maybe you forgot to check an option. But a good way to rule that out is plug like right now as it sits, plug the end stop into it, run the M119 with the button pressed and with it not pressed. And if you're seeing a state change, then that means the end stop's working and it sounds like it's just a firmware configuration issue. And if there is for some reason like a bug, let us know and we'll get it taken care of. Well, I say we, I do all the firmware stuff, but I know there's no issues with the firmware in terms of it not setting that correctly. So it's more than likely that the firmware that's on there probably doesn't have the Easy ABL configuration defined. So it could have been that it didn't pull in. A lot of times I've seen what happens if you're downloading, and I've done this myself, if you're downloading, the firmware bin file, if you've done it a couple times and you have those firmware files in your downloads folder, most web browsers will append like a parentheses 1 and another parentheses and then 2 and 3 and 4. And if you forget to rename that file when you put on the SD card, the firmware, the bootloader specifically looks for firmware.bin. So if it's anything other than all lowercase firmware.bin, it won't flash it.
Okay. Well, I'll give all of that a shot, and hopefully it was a user error.
Yeah, it's all good. It happens. I mean, it's gotten me, like, I've been, testing firmware and building machines, and like I've downloaded a couple and I'm like copy over. It's like, it's not updating. And then I realize, I forgot to rename the file. So, but yeah, just give that a shot. And if that's not the issue, just head up our support team and they'll be able to get you all straightened out and figured it out. But if you're seeing a state change with the end stop switch, that means the hardware on that board is working. If you're not seeing a state change and you know that switch is good, then the board might need to be replaced. And before we jump to that conclusion, make sure that the wire itself is good, and an easy way to rule that out is literally just unplug the X end stop, plug it into the Z, and then press it, because that'll rule out if it's the board or it's the cabling or the switch. Like there, just for a simple end stop switch, you've got, technically 3 points of failure. You got the board itself, you got the cable, because it's got both the ends, and then the switch itself. So just make sure to try to rule that out. Usually what I'll do is if I'm like, well, I don't know if this is working, I'll take, like if it's a motor that's not working, I'll switch the motor with another one. If it's an end stop that's not working, I'll switch the end stop with another one. Because then I can kind of rule out, okay, if I know X is working, I know that X's cable and its switch is working. If I move it to Z and it still doesn't work, then I know it's an issue with the board. But if I move it to Z and it does work, then I know it's an issue with either the cable or the switch then for the Z, if that makes sense.
It does. All right, I'll give that a shot. I appreciate the time.
No problem, Marvin. Take it easy. Thanks for giving us a call.
Thanks.
All right, take it easy. All right, so that wraps this up. We're going to try to do this at least. I want to do it every day, but depending on what's going on here, it may be easy to do. It may not. But at least an hour a day where people can call in and, you know, ask questions. It doesn't just have to be about our stuff. It could just be general 3D printing questions, and I'll do my best to answer what people are asking us. I'm just going through chat here. 3 Jeff's asked, I don't feel my bed is flat. I'm sticking a magnetic system on it and I'm manually level. What would you recommend that would be and stay flat? I mean, if you want to go for broke, a Mic 6 plate is usually pretty flat. But personally, just get a bed leveling system. Get our Easy ABL or the BL Touch. Like, I'd use a BL Touch over manually leveling any day, especially if you know your bed is not flat. But you can also try to shim it. I would love to sit here and talk a lot more, but I do have other stuff I have to get to. Let's see here. Are we working on a firmware for the MKS Gen L2? I'm assuming you mean the S Gen L. And not officially. I do have them here, and I'm playing with those boards to see if they're going to live up to my standards. I do have 2 of those MKS boards in printers here, and I've been very happy with them so far. So, but I don't have anything in terms of like our nice, easy to use firmware. So I don't want to be like, yeah, we're doing it, and then we don't get time. I've got a lot of other stuff that's on my plate currently. But I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope just hearing, you know, the conversation between me and these other people, someone sees this and, you know, they're watching it. Not only is it, you know, something people can enjoy listening to, but, you know, maybe you're having the same issue, and, you know, hearing, you know, me try to work through other issues with these other people helps you out too. So, I appreciate everybody that stopped by. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick little stream, and I will see you guys on the next one. I'm going to commit to every other day. So today's Monday. There will for sure be another one on Wednesday and another one on Friday. But I will try to do more ones. So keep an eye on our channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is sending out notifications. So I subscribe to our channel. I've been getting them every time I go live. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I personally don't care how many subscribers we have, but if you want to keep up with what's going on here and the stuff we're putting out, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I also have an interview that will be coming out on the channel later this week that I did with a guy for his school. That's just on like how I got started in different things. So hopefully you guys will find that interesting too. Some of you guys might find it boring, but it's something I was like, you know what, I'm going to share this with everybody. So I just got to finish putting that together and then post it on the channel. So thanks for stopping by, and as always, happy printing.